Excused, okay, noting his absence at 2:07 p.m. And President Pro Tem Cobb?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes with 3 ayes, 1 excused, Jenkins. This item will be continued to the June 11th CED meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, moving to our next item, returning to item number 5, adopt an ordinance prohibiting discrimination in real estate transactions and in the provision of goods, facilities, and services by any business, the city, or city-funded entity on the basis of non-traditional family and relationship structure. Thank you.
Councilmember Ramachandran, come on up. Welcome.
Thank you. To the members of the committee, thank you so much for hearing this item today. Oh, hold on. Okay. Thank you so much for hearing this item today. I want to start off with acknowledging that the City of Oakland has been at the forefront of various initiatives to promote civil rights in every aspect of life. We were among the first to introduce protections on the basis of various factors, including sexual orientation, gender identity, among a myriad of things. In fact, the City of Oakland has been a pioneer in this space far before the state of California has over the course of our history. The City of Oakland and the broader East Bay community has always had a large polyamorous and asexual community. There are so many in the poly and non-traditional family and relationship structure that have faced discrimination despite being out and active for generations. This discrimination particularly wields its ugly face when it comes to the housing context, employment context, city services, businesses, education, the courts, and so much more. Personally speaking, as a queer person being in and around the polyamorous communities for years in Oakland and beyond, I have seen so many individuals be afraid to come forward with their true and authentic identity in housing contexts, in workplaces, in schools, for fear of retaliation on the basis of that identity, and fears specifically based on a lack of legal protections for that identity. And this is why I am proud to author this legislation that would make Oakland the pioneers on the West Coast to enact these protections. The first protections for non-monogamous and other diverse family and relationship structures was passed in Somerville and Cambridge, Massachusetts last year. Oakland is joined by the city of Berkeley in being the first to introduce this type of law here on the West Coast. And the city of Berkeley has recently introduced theirs as well, which has very similar, if not almost mirrored language to the one before you today. I've worked closely with Councilmember Terry Taplin in Berkeley to make sure that our intentions are aligned and that we can provide a broad range of protections that all falls squarely within the jurisdiction of the city. I'm grateful for close collaboration on this piece of legislation with OPEN, the Organization for Polyamory and Ethical Non-Monogamy, the Polyamorous Legal Advocacy Coalition, the Chosen Family Law Center, Polyactive, among others, several who are here today and or are listening online. Many individuals in these groups are my constituents, and the majority reside in the city of Oakland and genuinely care about these issues because so many that I personally know have faced discrimination in these regards. I've also worked closely with the city attorney's office to make sure that the language is not preempted by any existing state law. And so the legislation before you has 2 attachments that go into detail about what consensual non-monogamy is in the first place, particularly when it comes to the family context and the ways in which the discrimination actually often manifests itself. So really quickly, this legislation, just running through the legislation itself very quickly, this is a proposed ordinance that broadly encompasses all diverse family and relationship structures. So this is not only limited to polyamorous families, but also those who identify as asexual, those who identify as single parents by choice, those who live in multi-generational households, family structures where children are raised by grandparents, family structures where children are raised by older siblings, among a myriad of other family and relationship structures that are not just nuclear heterosexual families. So secondly, this law mirrors an existing ordinance that we have, OMC 10.4, that enacts protection on the basis of sexual orientation. So this ordinance ahead of you covers non-discrimination protections in three realms. Firstly, real estate, which includes the rental market, purchasing, leasing, etc. It includes discrimination in the context of businesses and discrimination in the context of the provision of city services. As far as remedies goes, this legislation would allow enforcement by the city attorney as well as give individuals the right to pursue civil action. And finally, what's also in front of you is a very minor amendment that I have been told is non-substantive that would change the word non-traditional into the words diverse. And I just briefly want to explain why I believe this is the right kind of change, because when we think about those who live in extended family structures, and including polyamorous families, multi-generational households, and others, these family structures are actually rooted in tradition, not in the opposition of tradition. There are so many non-Western cultures who have extended family structures as the basis for the foundations of their own cultures, and this is important that we call that out rather than make wrongful assumptions that this is some kind of new phenomenon of any kind. So I'm excited to bring this forward because it's time that all relationship and family structures are recognized, legitimized, and given the protections that they deserve. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. How many speakers do we have, Madam Clerk?
To the chair, about 15.
15, okay. All 15 speakers are welcome to speak, of course, but you're not required to use your full 2 minutes. So feel free to just use a minute if you choose. But before that, colleagues, any questions before we hear the speakers? Okay, let's call the speakers.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Okay, calling the speakers for item number 5. Once you hear your name, please approach the podium or please raise your hand in the Zoom app. Alexander Chin, Lily Lamboy, Brett Chamberlain, Carlos Rubenstein, Heath Schneiger, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, Heath from Modern Family Institute, Lillian Lamboy, Raquel Smartt, Ms. Asada Olabala, David J., Nicholas Towns, Whitney Hughes, Naomi Moonwera, Justin Reed, William Winters, Sonia Mia, or I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Ms. Sonia, from Modern Family Institute. Please state your name for the record before providing your comments. Sorry.
Alexander Chen. So my name is Alexander Chen, and I am the founding director of the Harvard Law School LGBTQ+ Advocacy Clinic. I also teach gender identity, sexual orientation law at Harvard Law School, and I am one of the co-founders of the Polyamory Legal Advocacy Coalition. We wrote the bills that Councilmember Ramachandran mentioned in Massachusetts, and we're here to speak on behalf of why we strongly urge Oakland to pass this historic ordinance. So firstly, from an LGBTQ+ perspective, chosen families have played a very important role for LGBTQ+ people, and many of those chosen families look different than the nuclear family structure. So from an LGBT+ perspective, we see a higher prevalence of people within our community who engage in consensual non-monogamous practices, have different kinds of blended families, and suffer from discrimination as a result. In addition, however, I want to focus the bulk of remarks today on something else that the Councilmember Ramachandran led with, which is that there's also a racial justice component to this work. If we look at the history of America, what my research has shown is that interest in settler colonialism and white supremacy really suppressed a lot of alternative family formation, right? either it's indigenous families that were raising their children in villages, to newly freed slaves who often had matrifocal and extended family structures, to ethnic immigrants from all over the world who live in ways that are not this nuclear family ideal in America. And really, the idea that the nuclear family is superior has been weaponized against marginalized communities for centuries in order to say that those family structures are inferior to this sort of leave it to Beaver 1950s idea of what the family looks like. And so we intentionally have written these ordinances in Massachusetts to be very broadly inclusive, right? Not just of poly people and those who engage in C&M or asexual or aromantic people, but also family forms that are very common, especially among people of color, multi-parent, multi-generational households, and step-families, et cetera. So thank you so much for your time.
Hi there, I'm Dr. Lily Lamboy. I am the founder, along with Heath, of the Modern Family Institute, as well as a political scientist by training who works on issues of social and economic inequality. I want to share a bit about my personal journey and how this impacts me as somebody who lives in the East Bay and has worked in Oakland, and then kind of extrapolate from there around the need for this ordinance. So until very recently, I served as the head of diversity, equity, and inclusion at Blue Shield of California, which is headquartered here in Oakland. I was out and proud as a pansexual. I was open with all of my colleagues about issues around my health and mental health, and I never once felt safe to come out at work as a polyamorous person. I'm sharing that because I think it underscores the level of stigma and fear that still faces this community, despite advances in other aspects of identity being protected. So in addition to the concrete protections that this adds in terms of making sure that when I and my multi-adult household seek housing in Oakland, that we don't get funny looks or know that we might have been passed over as a result of our family structure, there's a symbolic importance to this, which sends a message to anyone who lives and works in Oakland. We see you, we respect you, we care about you. We think that you and your family and your loved ones are legitimate, and we want you to feel free to share who you are and who you love with others. And this is something that has not been afforded to the many, many people that I know who live and work in Oakland. I have a lot of friends whose children are afraid to share that they have parental figures in their lives who don't fit the nuclear family mold, fear that they will be bullied, fear that they won't be able to show up as their authentic selves. So on behalf of those kids, on behalf of those parents, on behalf of myself and other researchers in the space, I'm really proud and honored to be able to recommend this ordinance be passed. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Brett Chamberlain, Executive Director of the Organization for Polyamory and Ethical Non-Monogamy, or OPEN. We are an East Bay-based advocacy organization working to advance acceptance and legal rights for non-monogamous families and relationships. As Councilmember Ramachandran referenced, ethical non-monogamy, also called consensual non-monogamy, is an umbrella term encompassing a range of non-traditional or more expansive family and relationship structures. Non-monogamy, despite being a fairly hidden identity, is quite widespread in its practice. Approximately 6% of American adults who identify as currently being in a relationship identify that relationship as being entirely non-monogamous. That means tens of thousands of Oakland residents identify as non-monogamous. Unfortunately, this remains a very stigmatized identity. In 2023, Open conducted a community survey. We surveyed 2,500 non-monogamous individuals, 300 of whom were California residents, who widely reported experiences of stigma and discrimination on the basis of their non-monogamous identity. 4% reported experiences of stigma or discrimination in housing, 7% in city or city-supported services, and 16% in healthcare and mental health care. So unfortunately, these experiences of discrimination are quite common, including here in Oakland. We're really excited by the opportunity for these protections to work on protecting people from such experiences. Non-monogamous families and individuals are not the only ones that would benefit from these protections. As you've heard and will hear from other speakers, diverse family structures are also protected. I want to highlight children in diverse family structures, particularly children of LGBTQ families. These protections close a loophole wherein children of LGBTQ+ and other non-normative family structures aren't currently protected because they are articulating protections based on not their own identity, but the identity of their parents. So we're very pleased by the expansiveness of these protections and hope that they will be adopted. Thank you so much.
If your name was called, don't hesitate. Come on up. People should line up one at a time. We're keeping things moving here.
Hello there. My name is Dr. Heath Scheckinger. I am the co-chair of the American Psychological Association's Committee on Consensual Non-Monogamy, housed in the LGBTQ division of the American Psychological Association. I'm also co-founder of the Modern Family Institute. It's an honor to come here and speak on behalf of supporting this ordinance. The first thing that I want to mention, similar to what Councilmember Ramachandran mentioned, is that important statistic around the evolution of nuclear families. Currently, the most recent census in the U.S. found that only 18% of U.S. families resemble a nuclear family. And really that model is what rose in the 1940s and peaked in the 50s and 60s and has since then been on a decline in terms of prevalence. So really this ordinance goes to honor and protect the diverse and rich and beautiful families that exist in Oakland that really represent the majority of families that exist in America today. The other thing that I'll mention is just speaking to, the prevalence of the consensual non-monogamy community. This represents 5% currently engaged, so around 16 million Americans, and this is growing as well, with recent polls indicating that 1/3 of Americans indicate their ideal relationship structure is something other than strict monogamy. So we see a steady increase in prevalence and interest as well. So we anticipate that this will be something that is more and more common. Oakland really has an opportunity to take a stand and acknowledge this population. And I would say in terms of the importance as well, as a psychologist, part of my task is to try to document and understand the impact of that stigma and discrimination. Recent polls indicated that 2/3 of individuals who identify as consensual non-monogamous experience stigma or discrimination on the basis of their relationship structure, with those same studies also acknowledging that that internalized stigma has adverse impacts on their mental health and their relationships. So it's time that we start having our laws and ordinance reflect how people are structuring their families and relationships today. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Whitney Missildine. I'm here with my wife today, and we've been in a 17-year polyamorous relationship, and we both have public-facing jobs. I'm a podcast host and producer. She's an author. We have hundreds of thousands of people that read and listen to our work. And while we have a sanctuary city here, when we're facing the public, we have to be hidden, essentially, with who we are as a polyamorous couple. This has always been a sanctuary city for me. I've lived in Oakland since in 2009. I grew up in central Pennsylvania, and when I go home, I can't be open about who I am. But here I can. And it's such an honor to be part of Oakland, who provides that kind of sanctuary and this kind of place for people like me. And I urge everyone to have our laws reflect that. Thank you.
I have to ask, Chair, for the speaker, did you say your last name is Whistledown?
No, sorry, Missildine.
Thank you.
Missildine, thank you.
Hi, my name is William Whistledown. My name is William Winters. I am the board president of Open and the founder of Bonobo Network, which is an 1,800-member community with members around the country, 800 here in Oakland, who identify as non-monogamous. And I think the point that I really want to sort of drive home here is that the discrimination that E&M people face, ethically non-monogamous people face in Oakland, is very real. In my 13 years as an organizer in this community, I've seen so many cases of people facing harassment and housing discrimination due to their family structures and the ways that they love. Most recently, a friend in neighboring Berkeley was forced to move due to her landlord's disapproval of her lifestyle. Organizations that serve our community have had building licenses denied here in Oakland. Neighbors with petty disputes against E&M neighbors have cynically attempted to leverage this at the planning department, sensing the power of the moral and social disapprobation of E&M. Angry ex-partners in custody disputes attempt to leverage their former partners' E&M practice to gain advantage of family courts. I've seen people who've been stigmatized or denied sexual health care by medical providers. people who've lost jobs or employment opportunities after their practices were outed. This is 2024, and if this discrimination were based on religion, race, sexual preference, gender identity, or some other factor, we wouldn't countenance this, and we should now. It's time for Oakland to lead. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Naomi Munavera. I'm the partner of Whitney Missildine. We have been polyamorous for 17 years, and as Whit was talking about, we have really public-facing jobs. I'm an author. Many people read my work, and I'm open about so many things. I write nonfiction. I write about all parts of my life and being a brown woman in America, and there is this one big secret in my life that I cannot talk about because it's not seen as morally valid, it's not seen as equal to other people's relationships, so it is this like really difficult thing to try to negotiate in my life. And I would love us as Oakland to be that, we're sort of innovators, we always have been. I would like us to be innovators in this way too, because as we were talking about, there are so many of us in this boat. We have this big secret in our life that is seen as morally invalid, and that is just really painful. And the other thing I want to say is that we are incredibly diverse. I think that there is a stigma around polyamory that it is all white and upper class, and that is actually not true. We are immigrants, we are POC, we are class diverse, we are from all parts of the country, and I really hope that Oakland has been leading in so many ways and also leads in this way. Thank you.
Honorable committee members and fellow Oakland residents. My name is Nicholas Towns, and today I stand before you to express my wholehearted support for the discussed ordinance. This ordinance is not merely a policy change, it's a bold step towards inclusion, equity, and justice for all who call Oakland home. In our diverse community, families and relationships do not adhere to a one-size-fits-all approach. From single parents to blended families to chosen families and partnerships beyond nuclear models, the fabric of our community is rich with varied threads of connection and care. And by championing this ordinance, we are acknowledging and protecting the myriad of ways in which love and responsibility manifest in our lives. I have personally experienced all sorts of discrimination in my life, and discrimination on the basis of family and relationship structure is deeply unjust and often overlooked, and it creates significant barriers. It can limit access to housing, healthcare, employment. It exacerbates inequalities and perpetuates cycles of poverty and exclusion. No one should face discrimination for who they love, how they build their families, or the nature of their personal relationships. By supporting this ordinance, you are sending a powerful message that Oakland stands for dignity, respect, and equal rights for all that call itself residents. We are affirming that our city's strength lies in our ability to embrace and protect our diverse communities. As we move forward, let us be guided by the principles of compassion, understanding, and inclusivity. Let us work together to ensure that Oakland remains the beacon of hope it has always been as a model of progressive leadership for cities nationwide. I urge the esteemed members of this committee to pass this ordinance like their peers in Massachusetts. Let us make history today by affirming that commitment to equitable and inclusive Oakland and maintaining the rights and the values that we offer so many others. Thank you.
I'd like to speak to some areas where you don't get a lot of discussion on relationships, but there is discrimination. One area is in the area of adoptions. And as it relates to African Americans, and it doesn't happen often, but when African Americans adopt non-black children, those relationships are considered inappropriate because for some reason, if we adopt a white child, that's questionable, whether or not that child should be in the home of a black person. But if a white person adopts a black child, it's okay, and it's never questioned. And I've had friendship with someone who adopted a white child, and it's always been challenged whether that's appropriate to do that. The other area of relationships that is challenging and sometimes discriminated against are grandparents. When grandparents have to raise children, and that happened a lot in the African American community because of various situations with their children being unable to do it, they are not getting the financial assistance. It's discrimination in that arena. But also it's deemed that because of your age, you don't have the capacity or ability to raise a child, and you're being questioned about it. But those are two areas. And then along with this, people are saying at the podium that they can't come out. Well, as a black person, I come out every day. Just being able to come out don't mean you're going to get justice or you're going to be treated right. I just had an argument with the lady from the Economic and Workforce Development talking about black issues, and she insists that her department is doing everything to help black people. That's discrimination in another form. When you try to misrepresent you're doing something for black people, that department needs to be investigated for the racism in it.
Hi, I'm coming up again. Some of us had to leave, so I'm going to read a quick statement for
Through the
some
chair,
Sorry.
if you would like to address.
Yeah, if you had your 2 minutes, then your 2 minutes are done. Yeah.
Thank you. Calling the names for those who have not stepped up to the podium or have not raised their hand. Raquel Smartt, I do see your hand raised in the Zoom app. Carlos Rubenstein, Lillian Lamboy, David J., Justin Reed, and Sonia.
Hello, my name is Valkyrie Jacobson-Smith, and I am speaking the words of Sonia Mehta today.
Through the chair to the member of the public, we do not allow that. The member who signed up must speak themselves and be present in the chamber.
Do you have a speaker card in?
I don't.
I'm sorry, only people with speaker cards could come and speak for themselves or for anybody else. That's just the rules. We can't change the rules today.
Alas.
Sorry.
Do apologize. Thank you through the chair. Moving to our Zoom users, if I can get 2 minutes on the virtual clock. Okay, thank you. Starting with Raquel Smartt. You may unmute yourself and begin your comments, Raquel.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, hello, my name is Raquel A. Smartt. I'm an Oakland resident going on 8 years and originally from the East Coast. I'm a wife, a mother, a licensed marriage and family therapist, as is my husband. And we both have seen our fair share of non-monogamous clients, and we also happen to be polyamorous. I'm in support of this non-discrimination ordinance because when is it ever okay to discriminate against someone just for being different? Because that's all this is differences. And Oakland is known for and celebrates its diversity. There are intergenerational households, blended families, same-sex couples, interfaith, interracial, multicultural, and the list goes on and on. Non-monogamous families and relationships are just another one of those differences. And we deserve the protection rights that have been given to and fought for by those other forms of families and relationship structure. Thank you.
Thank you, Raquel. Okay, I do see Google Pixel. I will call on you. Please state your name and whether or not you provided a speaker's card for this item.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Carlos Rubenstein. For some reason, Zoom put my phone on as my username. Thank you for allowing me to speak today, and thank you for meeting on this issue. I just want to say that many of us are aware that California's laws have become a light to other states that automatically enact legislation identical to, and simply because that is what California has done. As California goes, so goes much of the United States. With this legislation, we Oaklanders have an opportunity to be that same shining light for all of California. We wouldn't be the first city to protect alternative relationship and family structures. We have already heard about Somerville, Massachusetts. So if you're worried about stepping into this new and growing area of the law, your worries are over. Equal rights should extend to polyamorous families to ensure fairness and inclusivity. Just as monogamous families have the right to live and work to support themselves without discrimination, polyamorous families should be afforded the same opportunity to secure jobs, services, and safe and stable homes based on their familial arrangements. Denying these rights to polyamorous families perpetuates discrimination and inequality and undermines the principles of fairness and justice in our society. Council, please be a light to our citizens, our state, and all the world. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Google Pixel, or Carlos. Thank you for your comments. Again, I call the names of Lillian Lamboy, David J., Justin Reed, and Sonia. If you do not wish to speak, we will move on. Okay, through the chair. That was our last speakers.
Okay, all the speakers' names have been called. Councilmember Ramachandran, any closing comments, Councilmember, before we decide to deliberate and vote?
Absolutely. There were a couple of individuals that couldn't speak today, but if there's any questions on some of the statistics that are in the information in front of you, on the nature of the discrimination, percentage of the frequency of diverse family structures in Oakland, et cetera, I'm happy to answer that and call upon our experts here. And I can answer questions as well.
Thank you. Colleagues, Councilmember Gallo.
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the item. Thank you.
To send it to the full council. Do you prefer consent or non-consent for next week?
I would prefer consent.
Consent, okay.
Consent. Right.
I'm sorry, as amended with this, what we're passed out today, these minor
Yes.
amendments here. Okay.
Yep.
Councilmember Fife.
So, through the chair to our city attorney, does this ordinance regulate how the city of Oakland engages its employees, or how does this impact an individual's right to a legal resolution, if they are experiencing discrimination? What does it allow individuals to do?
So this ordinance applies to the provisions of goods, facility, and services by the city and city-funded entities. So this only relates to the provision of services and facilities by the city, and it, just like with other businesses, if the city discriminates on the basis of diverse family relationships, it allows for civil enforcement by the individuals who are discriminated against.
So I'm a little confused then, because the speakers were talking about their own personal experiences, but this ordinance covers goods and service provision if the city of Oakland discriminates for family structure?
And private businesses too.
But it's private businesses that the city contracts with?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. City Attorney, but someone can't, today, as we know, you see in restaurants, we have the right to refuse service to anybody, but not really, because you can't refuse service to anybody based on their race or religion or any protected class, dealing with civil rights or gender or whatnot, right? This adds one more category where an entity would not be able to discriminate against, in addition to all the other ones that we all know, in our society, in our state, and country, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's one of the things that this does.
Yes.
Okay.
So the individuals, the classification that we're talking about today, are not covered under Title VII?
Do you mean the federal law,
Yeah.
Title VII? No. I mean, that's
So
one of the reasons why.
In order to protect individuals in the city of Oakland, this ordinance is required because currently people can legally be discriminated against in the city of Oakland for family structure.
Well, correct. And Title VII applies to employment, and this ordinance does not apply to employment, but it applies to housing and real estate transactions and services provided by businesses and city-funded entities.
So you don't have to be a contractor to be with the city of Oakland to be covered by this ordinance? What I'm trying to understand is, will this have universal coverage for anyone who does business with the city of Oakland and who does not do business with the city of Oakland? I'm trying to understand the jurisdiction that the city
so
has
it
here.
applies to, in section 9.44.020, A3 and A4 are where it applies to city services and facilities and city-supported services and facilities. So it applies to the use of availability of any municipal service or facility, so city-provided services or facilities, and also city-supported services and facilities. So anything that's wholly funded or partially funded or supported or otherwise supported by the city. So it covers both city-provided services and also city-funded services.
City-provided and city-funded.
Yeah, and all business establishments that's not funded by the city. So
I
it applies to.
I didn't hear that last part.
So it also applies to any businesses in Oakland, whether it's funded by the city or not.
That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yes.
All businesses. Okay,
Yes.
I'll second the motion made by Councilmember Gallo.
Councilmember Ramachandran, do you have one more comment? Oh, okay. So I'm of course happy to support this. Just so no one out there in the public is oddly confused, this does not create any new rights for marriage in terms of marrying more than one person. That's still not allowed, and this does not change that. But this says that no matter what kind of relationship you or others happen to be in, you can't discriminate against them, all right? Whether you like it or not, you can't be discriminating against them. People need to be treated equally and fairly and with respect. So that's what this does. And it seems like a no-brainer to me, so happy to support this, and we could call the roll.
Okay, thank you. And that was moved by Councilmember Gallo, seconded by Councilmember Fife to approve the recommendations of staff as amended, and specifying that amendment of page 1 of the supplemental legislation entitled March 7th, striking the word non-traditional, replacing it with the word diverse of the title, as well as on page 2 of section chapter 9.45, striking the word non-traditional, replacing it with the word diverse. And on roll, council members Fife.
Aye.
Gallo.
Aye.
And Chair Cobb.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The motion passes with 3 ayes, 1 excused. Jenkins to approve the recommendations of staff as amended to go to the March 19th City Council agenda on consent.
Thank you all for being here. Okay, next item, Madam Clerk.
Oh, thank you. And to the, if I may, through the chair, just a reminder to Councilmember Ramachandran and staff to please provide the supplemental legislation to the clerk's office by tomorrow by 4 p.m. Thank you so much. Noting that we have one final action item. It is 3:30 and our next meeting starts at 4. Reading in the title for item number 6. Adopt a resolution, 1, accepting and appropriating a community response initiative to strengthen Emergency Services Act, Crisis Act grant in an amount not to exceed $3,558,991 awarded by the California Department of Social Services, and 2, authorizing the city administrator to negotiate and execute a grant agreement with Family Bridge